Peace and light, family. I hope that you are well. I am the Queen Poe, and I am here with Malik to have a conversation on manhood. I am very, very excited to have this conversation. It's a topic that, has been coming up quite often. What's the difference between a male and a man? How do we define manhood? And as this whole conversation of Black women feeling unprotected and all of that stuff has been going on, I feel like in the social political realm, we both felt like it was so valuable for just, a Black woman and a Black man to sit down and really like dig deep into the conversation on manhood. So Malik, do you mind sharing a little bit about yourself, who you are, your background, all that good stuff?
Yes. Thank you so much for the introduction and glad to be here on the channel. What's up, everybody? Peace and love to everybody. But yeah, once again, my name is Malik. I am 23 years old. I am an investor and I work in real estate / property management. And I'm just a humble Black man looking to learn, looking to build with people and, just create a solid foundation for myself and give back to others.
Ah, that's dope. So all of the titles, you really kind of being humble though, because we got to talk about you being an author. We got to talk about the poetry and all that other good stuff. You ain't got to be humble right now.
I'm humble. I'm humble. It's a blessing to be alive right now with all the chaos going on. I'm just glad to be in a good mental space and to have good people, good family around me. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So Malik has come up with some amazing questions that he sent, which I am grateful for. Normally I'm the one producing the questions and he shot some questions over and I was like, yes, this is amazing. And for those of you who are watching this on his platform who may not know me, I am the Queen Poe. I am a holistic wellness practitioner and consultant. I am the curator of the wellness community, which is a community that we have a safe space for people of all identities to join and build and learn and share and receive support as we travel through our wellness journey, our holistic wellness journey. We focus on spirituality and share resources and just so much love. So join the wellness community, patreon.com/the Queen Poe. And I am also a YouTube content creator where I talk about everything from spirituality. Thank you. I talk about everything from spirituality, mental wellness, all kinds of good stuff. So find me on YouTube at the Queen Poe on YouTube and Instagram and all platforms. So are you ready? Let's get started with this conversation.
I'm ready. Okay. Let's do it. The first question I had, just put little notes together, but, I think it's important for us Black men to start having these conversations, as you mentioned before, and to speak with one another as a Black man and as a Black woman. And one of the things that I like to do in speaking with Black women is ask them, what is their definition of a man?
What is my definition of a man? Ooh. So first and foremost, I have to start with just the spiritual aspect of it. For me, spiritually, a man is someone who is balanced in their sacred masculine and divine feminine, a man who leads with spirit, a man is creative, he's nurturing, he's protective, he is a divine source of wisdom. And a guiding light in his own right. Mentally, a man is vulnerable. He's honest. He's open. There's so many aspects of a man that I could describe that really, in a sense, really defines a good human being, right? Yeah. But I feel like what differentiates a man from a woman is that sense of divine connection with protection and leadership. I strongly, I'm old school. I'm very traditional. So, and I'm unapologetically traditional in a lot of ways. So for me, when I am around a man, I feel like that men say, a man when the man walks in the room, he's an energy. It's an energy that they carry. Presence. Absolutely. And when I'm in the
Mm-hmm.
presence of a man, I feel protected. I feel safe. I feel like, I can be open and be vulnerable and dwell in my divine feminine space because
Mm.
he dwells sacredly in his sacred masculine,
Yep.
without being toxic. You know what I'm saying? He's balanced and he
Exactly.
leads with wellness. So that's a
Yep.
man for me. I could go on for days, but
That is a strong, powerful definition. I don't think anybody could say you didn't leave anything out. You pretty much hit all corners with that one. So
Thank you. How do you define a man as a man? How do you define
you
manhood?
it's a ever evolving answer for me. Being
Mm,
the age that I am and being open to speaking with elders, speaking to men that have lived a long life, and just been able to experience different things within their lives. I think the more I progress within my path, within my journey, whether it is financially, spiritually, etc., I think the answer always evolves for me. But I would say in this current moment in time, a man is someone who is honest, like you mentioned, who practices transparency, who is open to being vulnerable and
mm,
practices it. And that doesn't mean that he is any less than a man. It doesn't mean that he is any less of a specific type of race or anything of that nature. It just means that he is willing to put his heart out on the line and be able to express himself thoroughly so that people can know where he comes from and know where he's going. So I would say that's how I define a man. Yeah.
mm. That's so interesting. So people can know where he comes from and know where he's
Yeah.
going.
Yeah, because I
Mm,
feel as though for for someone to truly understand the essence of a man, you kind of have to know where he came from to get to this point.
mm.
Yeah. You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And you said that your definition is it evolves over time. What do
Yeah.
you feel like causes your definition to evolve? Do you think it's the times? Is it experience? Like what
hmm
causes your definition to evolve?
I would say the it evolves because of experiences that I personally go through or through lessons that maybe I didn't necessarily expect. Because you can only have so much planned out. But I think when you go through certain life lessons that you carry on with you um, in life, I think it creates and shapes and molds you to become a stronger version of you, a better version of you than what you were yesterday.
Mm,
Yeah. So
mm,
experience for sure. Definitely connecting with certain people. I think that, if you come across the right lesson, meaning like if you come across the right person, then, you know, I think that can definitely shape you from who you are today versus who you will be after.
wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. But that's actually a great segue into my other question, which is uh, what is the difference between a boy and a male to you or a man to you?
Wow. Oh wow.
Because we have to kind of, if we're gonna have this conversation, we need to be able to make sure that our listeners know if they're speaking with a boy, if they're speaking with a man. What are the differences?
I honestly, the first thing that comes to my mind is accountability. A
Mm.
man is accountable.
Mm-hmm.
A man is introspective. A man will look within himself
Yep.
first. Look within himself first. He takes responsibility with pride. You know what I'm saying? He
Mm-hmm.
embraces responsibility, and he holds himself accountable at all times,
Yep.
even for the things that he may not feel is perfect and society may not deem perfect. I feel like a man can look anyone, but especially himself, eye to eye, look in the mirror and say,
Mm-hmm.
I am that I am. And be
Mm-hmm.
honest about what that I am is. Everything after that I am, he's honest about and accountable for, and
Mm.
constantly and intentionally working to grow.
Mm-hmm.
No one is perfect. And I think that a lot of people, when they think of a man, they don't want to consider someone a man until he's reached that perfection of the
Right.
definition that they have in their mind.
Yep.
But no, I feel like once a boy starts taking accountability and responsibility for his growth, for his
Mm-hmm.
actions, for his words, for his thoughts. I feel like once that accountability comes into place, you are now stepping into manhood. So
Mm-hmm.
accountability for me is what I feel differentiates a boy from a man. A boy will pass the buck. A boy will say, "Well, it
Yep.
ain't me, it's you. It's not my
Mm-hmm.
fault, it's your fault. Well, I'm like
Yep.
this because such and such," and always pointing a finger. But a man says, "You know what? It don't all of that other stuff don't matter.
Yeah.
What matters is this is where I am and this is what I'm doing to get better." You
And
know,
taking responsibility.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What about you? What
I
do you think?
I would say the exact same thing. I think for me, it's more so not only being accountable with yourself, but the external world as well. Because it's one thing for you to honor your word, but you know, I feel as though you can cheat others a lot more than you cheat yourself. My
Mm-hmm.
personal experience, I just think that if you give someone your word, you should honor it and have integrity.
Absolutely.
Um, so the difference for me between defining what a boy is versus a man is honoring your word and, you know, allowing people to receive that and completely practice it.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm. Honoring your word. That makes me
Honoring
think
your
of the
word.
Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. It makes me think of
Exactly.
that. Honor
Yeah.
your word. That's definitely valuable.
That's all you got. You got your word, your name, and the day you're gonna transcend out this, out this world. So it's
Oh,
important.
wait a minute. We can't skip over that, Jim. Can you can you say that one more time? All we have is what?
All we have is our name, our word, and the time that we're gonna transcend out of this world.
Our name, our word, and our time that will transcend. So, what
Mm-hmm.
is the word to you? When you say the word, what is the
Mm-hmm.
word? Is it just what we say?
I think it's what we say, but it's also how we carry ourselves, whether it's interacting with people or interacting just with ourselves on a day-to-day basis. I think the word is it's your thought, it's how you feel, it's the embodiment of, all those different factors that makes you honor it and respect it. If you don't
Mm,
respect those things, then how can you really honor yourself?
mm.
Your thoughts, your feelings. Give if you don't give honor to those things, then how can you really provide that to someone else? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So it's more than just the spoken word, it's thoughts, it's
Hmm.
feelings, it's really the embodiment of your being.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what
a
the word
whole
is.
whole capsule. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Early gems. Early gems.
Yes, ma'am. But I wanted to follow that up with what what is something that men can do to be a little bit more accountable in your personal wisdom that they can hold themselves a little bit more accountable and responsible
mm,
with
something
themselves
that
first, and then second with people they surround themselves with.
something that men can do to kind of hold themselves accountable more and
Mm-hmm.
take on that responsibility. That's a great question. Mm,
Because it's one thing to say you need to be more accountable, but if you don't maybe give options for them to see and actually understand how they can do so, then it's kind of like they almost hit a dead end in a way.
honestly, the thing that I think of first is vulnerability. I feel
Mm,
like in order to be accountable, there has to be some sorts of tapping into vulnerability. And I know, a lot of some men hear that term vulnerable and they start
mm-hmm.
feeling like they get palpitations. Um, but vulnerability is the key to being open,
Mm,
right? And when we are open minded, when you come with an open heart, you come prepared to learn. I feel like you can't really be willing to learn anything. You can't take in new information or new knowledge if you're not open to something different. And
Mm-hmm.
quite often, I think that, if we're speaking about accountability and what it takes to really be accountable for our actions, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like a lot of it is willing to be vulnerable and willing to be open to new information and other ways of life outside of your learned behavior, outside
Mm.
of what you've been conditioned to believe is the right thing to do,
Wait
the
a
right
minute, wait a
practices.
minute, wait a minute. She just passed by a gem that I want everybody to recognize. Can you repeat what you said? You
Okay.
said when you said when you are vulnerable, you are able to, what was the last phrase you just said?
To learn, you're able
To
to be
learn,
open.
to be open and learn.
Absolutely. When you're vulnerable, you're able to be open to new knowledge and new information. And you have to be open in order to be able to say, you know what, there's something outside of the context of what I believe is right.
Right.
Sometimes we have a lot of boys practicing manhood wrong because
Mm.
society has taught them that manhood looks like this and masculinity looks like that. And this is how you
Mm-hmm.
should treat a woman. And this is how you should lead a household and lead yourself.
Right.
And I think in order to be accountable for your actions, you have to be willing to say, you know what, maybe this is not right.
Right.
Maybe I am wrong. Maybe I've been
Mm-hmm.
taught wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Let me try to practice something a little different.
Right.
And I think to do that, it takes vulnerability. To
Yep.
say I am wrong takes vulnerability.
Yep.
To say let me try something different, even something that's foreign or new, that takes vulnerability. So that's my recommendation. That's what I would say. Like, for a brother who's like, you know what, I want to be more accountable, I would say tap into that vulnerability, heal that aspect of yourself that may, be a victim of emotional detachment, causing
Mm.
you to not be vulnerable, emotional suppression, causing you to not be vulnerable. What's shutting down that aspect of you that is willing to say, I need to do something different because this shit
Right.
ain't working.
Right. And would
That's
you
it.
say that a lot of variables, or mainly the main variables that stops a man from being vulnerable is pride? Would you say pride
Pride.
is one of the main hurdles that prevents men from being vulnerable?
Absolutely. I would say
Okay.
pride. But I think pride is not a negative thing. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like pride is good, but what are you prideful about?
Mm.
What are you prideful of? I feel like if a man
Right.
is practicing manhood the right way, he should have some pride about that.
Right.
He should. I feel like that's also a characteristic of a man is pride and dignity, but a
Mm-hmm.
healthy sense of pride. Be prideful about healthy things. You eat well, you should be prideful about that. You
Mm-hmm.
are a praying man, you should be prideful about that.
Yep.
But I think misdirected pride is
Mm-hmm.
definitely an issue, and a lot of Black men struggle with pride. They have
Yep.
become victims of the ego, which is not their fault because society has conditioned Black men to rely on their ego because they have nothing else in this world.
Yep.
Our ego, the ego for a lot of Black men is their safe space.
Yep.
The ego for a lot of Black men is their shield, it's their armor. So
Mm-hmm.
they gotta have it. They gotta walk with their head held high, even if they're faking it.
Yep.
Fake it till you make it. So pride, in a lot of ways, is that protective armor. So I don't fault a brother for having pride, but I would just
Mm.
ask that you make sure that your pride is properly guided to the right spaces.
Context. Context
Absolutely.
and guide it to the right areas of your life.
Absolutely.
Amen
Absolutely.
to that.
What
Amen
do
to
you
that.
think? What do you think a man can do to practice accountability? What do you think how he can grow to be more accountable?
I'm a big proprietor of you are you are who you hang out with and who you surround yourself with. So I think the energy that you keep around you is something that can make or break, who you are or where you want to be and where you want to ascend to. So I think that if you start to look at not only just yourself, but if you start to look at who you keep around you and who's not necessarily holding you back, but maybe is not the best person to be around or best people to be around during this time of your growth, I think that it can be preventative, from
Mm,
almost like stunning your growth, your spiritual or your mental or your emotional growth. Even, for example, being in toxic relationships.
mm,
I think that whether it's a very romantic relationship, if it's a friendship, if it's maybe a relationship with a family member, I think that, as you said, um, you know, having those emotional roller coasters with these people, it can be quite draining, and it can
Mhm.
be um, hard for a man to want to take off his armor and put down his shield when all he knows is to be in defense mode. All he knows is to, go with the flow and fake it till he makes it, with maybe not even himself, but the people he surrounds himself with, whether it's his work environment, whether it's going out with certain friends, whether it's his woman. I think that if a man does not truly keep inventory of who he keeps around him, then it's almost hard to stay accountable, and responsible for yourself.
Mm.
Yeah.
So minding his circle, minding his tribe.
Yeah. Minding your tribe, as well as even the new people that you allow into your life, into your new space. I think that who you allow into your new space, it's not a given. It's not a right that everybody should have access to. Um, I think that people come into your life for a season and a reason. Some people stay longer than they should in your life. Um, so just keeping track and inventory of, are these people really here for me? Are they really here for my growth and for my well-being, as a man, but as an individual as a whole?
Mm.
Yeah.
That was deep. That was deep. I wish we was having this conversation live because I know the chat would be crazy. Right. Like we really need one of
We
those.
do. Those soundboards are legit. Legit.
Absolutely. But that was deep, because that's
Thank
so important. Our tribe, our circle,
you. Hmm.
that's key. That's key. And when you just said, some people stay longer than they're supposed to,
Yeah.
sometimes we hold on to people longer than we should hold on to them. We keep
Yeah.
them in that sacred space.
Yeah.
But really, that's what it is. Our tribe is a sacred space, and
Yeah.
they too can hold us accountable for growing, if they're
Hmm.
the right people.
Yeah.
So how do you feel someone can mind their tribe? What do you think they should look for when adding someone new or when
Hmm.
deciding to release someone old?
Great question. Um, for me, when someone new comes into my life, I want to know what is the lesson that they are going to teach me, even if it's just a work friend or an acquaintance. I feel as though the best way to really take inventory and figure out ways to see if this person is right to be in my tribe is to see why you attracted them in your lives in the first place. Like, where are you currently? Are you finding a new job? Did you just move to a new city? What is their purpose for them entering your life? And understand that, you know, everybody has their flaws, nobody is perfect, but I think that if you're able to manage certain flaws that they might have, that they're maybe willing to work on and heal through as well, if they're willing to heal through these things that um, they know that they have to work on, then I think that's a person that you should want to keep around. If they're not willing to work through their issues or work through certain things that they need healing from, I think that that person shouldn't be in your circle, because they're not willing to dedicate enough time and energy, not only to you, but to themselves. And if they don't take care of themselves,
Mm.
then how can they really support and take care of you?
Wow. So you said a couple of good things right there. You talked about, be willing to ask yourself, what is the lesson that I
Yeah.
can learn from this person? That's the reciprocity in a sense, especially
Yeah.
if you have something to offer. And I would hope that
Yeah.
we all know that we bring something to the table and we know
Absolutely.
what we bring to the table,
Yeah.
but that idea of just, what can I learn from this person? What does
Hmm.
this person bring into the table? I think that that's key.
Yeah.
And then also really understanding that people have to be on a healing journey too. They have
Yep.
to be on that healing journey. They got to be on a journey of growing and evolving. You don't want to attract people to your tribe that's just comfortable, you
Yeah.
know constantly comfortable and just good with being them. We all got those family members and those
Yeah.
friends, those people we
Hmm.
know who was just like, I know for me, it's some people I know, I'm like, you just a hood nigga and you comfortable being a hood nigga and you don't want to do nothing
Right.
else but be that. You know, you're happy in that space
And
and
you
I'm
know where
happy for
they
you.
are. Yeah.
Right, right. I'm happy for you, but at the same time, if I'm trying to elevate and I'm trying to grow, I can't be around anyone who's comfortable with just being stagnant.
Mm,
Yeah.
I agree 1000%. Yeah, beautifully said. Beautifully said. Do you feel as though that, um, you know, they say that we're products of our environment and who we keep around us is what makes us us. But in terms of going to our adolescence, in terms of going to our childhood, we don't get to, well, they say we don't get to pick our parents. I personally believe we pick the life lessons that we go through to experience it.
Mm-hmm.
But do you believe that we pick the family, the people that we are birthed into, or do you believe that we are just born just naturally and there's no real rhyme or reason for who we are born in?
Oh wow, this is a good one. This is a good one. Okay. Um wow. Honestly, I believe that all things are divine. All things are connected. I don't think that we are just, I don't feel like it's just like, whoop, you go to this family, you go to this family. I don't think so. I
Right.
am a firm believer in karma.
Okay.
I am a believer in reincarnation as well,
Mm,
so I believe in the spirit. I truly do. And I believe that our physical body is just an experience.
mm-hmm,
We're born in this body during this time for a reason,
mm,
and I feel like that reason is dependent upon our spirit's previous experience in whatever form we were manifested as previously.
mm,
That's just my personal opinion. So I do think that the families and the experiences that we are born into are a
mm-hmm,
reflection in a sense of our karma from
mm-hmm.
past lives,
Right.
and whatever form we manifested in. And I do think that it's all intentional. I feel like
Right.
it's all intentional. It happened this way for a reason. And
Mm-hmm,
going back to what you said about our tribe, asking ourselves, what lessons am I learning from this?
mm-hmm.
I feel like with a lot of people are very attached to their family story and their family narrative. And, we talk a lot about generational curses and
Yep.
generational trauma and stuff.
Yep.
But I think the key to healing from that narrative is asking yourself that question: what is the story? What is the lesson that I can extract from these experiences? Our family doesn't just teach us what to do, they also teach us what not to do. And
Yeah.
sometimes they teach us what not to do through their own lives,
Yeah.
through their own experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So I can look at family members of mine who struggle with addiction. And
Mm.
I know exactly what not to do based on what I saw them do.
Right.
Women who I was groomed around that were in abusive relationships. And I know
Mm.
what type of men to
Right.
not allow to entertain my time and my energy. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So I just really think that, it all happens for a reason. It's all, in a sense, destiny of sorts. You know what I'm
Uh-huh.
saying? But it's about what we do with it. It's
Right.
really about what we do with it that determines the next cycle.
Manifest destiny in this
Oh,
life and the prior.
absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. What about you? Do you believe in like past lives and spirit and all that stuff?
I do. I definitely believe that we aren't just here one time. If we are, then that life must be a really big lesson for you to experience and learn.
Mm-hmm.
Um, However, I think the more that you, or the more that I um, read, and the more that I study, and the more that I experience in my spiritual path, I do find that there are a lot of uh, there are a lot of deja vu moments where I know that this has happened before and that I'm just experiencing it again to really fulfill what I needed to come down here for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think it's important to note, um, we're all just energy and we're all here to experience different things, like you said. And it's important that we take note of that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
but that actually segues when you brought up toxic relationships or things that you can kind of avoid or not look before. Um, this segues into the question I had about um, how has interacting with unhealed men affected your life thus far?
Oh wow.
You
Wow.
don't have to get too personal if you don't want to, but
No, listen, I don't mind telling all my business, you know.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the
um,
vulnerability.
yeah, that's such a good question, you know, because it triggers so many other questions, like what is an
Mm,
unhealed man versus a healed man, and all that good stuff, you know.
mm,
And from my personal experience, at a very young age, I was able to recognize what it meant to be an unhealed person
mm,
without ever knowing or utilizing the term unhealed or toxic. You know what I'm
mhm.
saying? And for me, I would define that because I want to give clear definitions so that, you know, we are all on the
Absolutely.
same page.
Yeah.
When I think about an unhealed person, I think about someone who is intentionally and unintentionally hurting anything and everything in their path. You know what I'm saying?
Intentionally and unintentionally hurting everything in their path. I
Absolutely. And
like that.
I say unintentionally because sometimes they hurting people and don't even know it. They're just projecting their trauma.
Mm,
They're projecting their
yeah.
hurt, you know.
Hmm.
So that's how I define an unhealed person. Now, when it comes to dealing with unhealed men, that's been a cycle in my life from when I was young.
Mm,
First starting with my father and seeing my father be an unhealed man. You know, he
hmm.
went through a lot. My father comes from a Panamanian family, you know.
Hey,
um,
shout out to Panama.
Okay. um, but his mother passed away 2 months after I was born.
Oh, wow.
And he never quite healed from that. You know, he was very abusive to
Hmm.
women. I remember vividly him and my mother having fist fights, you know, um,
Wow.
going blow for blow. And that was literally my foundation.
Wow.
Hearing narratives of my grandfather, you know, essentially he killed my grandmother. But
Wow.
also I had my grandfather on this pedestal because he was evolving and I didn't even know it. But
Mm,
you know, it's that narrative of he was a terrible father but a great grandfather.
yes.
So I got the wisdom side of him. I got the kind side of him. I got to come pick us up on Saturday mornings and take us to White Castle side.
The
And you know,
redeemed side.
absolutely, I got the
Yeah.
redemption, but I still heard the stories and felt the trauma through my mother. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying?
yeah.
So having him in my life and having that juxtaposition of, wow, this is a man who did a lot of damage and was clearly unhealed, but is going through his healing journey
Hmm.
now. And I was able to watch him do that, you know. And just to see I have an older sister 14 years older than me, and you know, watching her be in abusive relationships, watching my aunt
Mm,
be in abusive relationships. I'm talking about bones broken abusive, thrown down steps abusive. You know, my sister pregnant and she got black and blue marks on her body, and my mother's like, what's going, you know, all of that stuff is going on. But then the crazy part
yeah.
is having some of these men be so kind to me,
Mm,
which really growing up created like a juxtaposition in my
yeah.
mind because I have my grandfather who was abusive but
Hmm.
kind to me, my sister's spouses and sorry for my sister if I'm telling too much of your business, but you know what it is, you know. But
All family.
having absolutely, you know, but having her partner be abusive to her but so kind to
Hmm.
us, to me and my brother, you know, my father being abusive to my mother, but you know, kind to us for the most part.
Right.
And just having that juxtaposition, it really shaped my perspective on what it means to be an unhealed person.
Mm,
Because what that taught me was men and people in general who are unhealed are also redeemable. They
mm,
also have the ability to be whole and to be well. I truly believe that no one at their core, no one in their nature is evil. No
mm,
one in their nature is evil. In our nature, we are all great, amazing, wellness centered people.
yeah.
It's just that something happened along our path that caused us to dwell in trauma. And
Yes.
some people just lead with their trauma as opposed to going on that journey of healing. So, dealing with unhealed men in my life, it really, more than anything, taught me the quality of the possibility of
Mm.
healing. You know, you got to know some unhealed people to know that healing is possible. If
Yeah.
everybody you meet in your life is whole,
Mm-hmm.
then you don't ever get that lesson that it's possible to go from being unhealed to being
Yep.
whole. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
once again, that lesson in it, it's a lot of negative, but I was able to extract the lesson and extract the positive. See, you dropped the gem with that one. You know, you dropped the gem. But yeah, that's how I would say it definitely helped me.
Okay. Such duality in that, such beauty in that. Yeah, it's so interesting to see a juxtaposition in, a healed man versus an unhealed man, or a man that does good and tries to redeem himself versus, stories of his past life or things that he's gone through out of hurt and reacting versus, finding solutions. So that's very interesting. It's almost like the saying, if you don't know, if you know only people that are whole, you won't ever know the unhealed side. It's like the saying of, you will never know light without dark, you will never know dark without light. It's kind of that same thing, that duality.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's so true. You know, seeing that darkness and like literally seeing it, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like seeing the abuse, seeing the trauma. But also I've always been an inquisitive person, always a curious child, you know,
Hmm.
so I didn't mind asking the crazy questions. I'm the child in the family that even my aunt was telling me this today. She was like, "Girl, your mouth is something else." You know what I'm saying? Because I will
Great
ask
though.
all the questions. Yeah, because I ask the questions, but I'm also kind of the keeper of the sacred family secrets, you know, because people know that I'm here and I'm present and I'm listening.
Hmm.
I was able to ask my grandfather, "How did you get to this point? How
Mm.
did you get there? How did you get to the point of beating your wife consecutively and doing all the hurt to your children and, you know, the drinking? How did you get
What was the
there?"
switch? Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, what happened? I'm
Yeah.
able to ask those questions. I'm able to talk to my father about his relationship with his mom. And, you know, once she passed away, what happened? What happened to you? What did you experience? What did you feel? And we can have those conversations, you know,
Right.
talk to my sister's partner, well, her ex-partner now, and me and him have had those conversations of like, bro, what happened? You know,
Hmm.
what happened to you? Where did it go wrong? You know,
Yeah.
and I learned from that, and now I'm also able to teach people because of that, those stories. You know what I'm saying?
Be able
So for
to take that
you,
and give that gift.
absolutely, for you, what is your experience with dealing with unhealed men, especially as a man? You know, dealing with unhealed men in your life. How?
Yeah.
What did you learn from that?
Um, I mean, I am the seed of my father, so I have to start with him.
Yeah.
Um, my relationship with my father didn't exist up until I became an adult. So I've
Wow.
always kind of had an interesting definition or understanding of what a man is, because it was non-existent. It was based
Mm,
upon what I see, what I heard, and what other people would tell me is a man, other people's definitions. That's why it's so
mm,
important for me to define what a man is. Um, so I think that me growing up and having, mentors in school, having mentors in sports, and kind of being able to see the good and as well as the bad, but primarily the good deeds, the honesty, the transparency, the holding yourself accountable. Those things I got to see in my mentors growing up, so it kind of gave me a solid foundation. And not to mention, I just have to shout this out because we don't give enough credit to the mothers that do such
mm,
wonderful work with their daughters or their sons. I think it takes a very strong and very passionate woman to not give up on their child, to not lose faith, and to, instill within them all the great things that they know that they want them to be. So I just want to make that clear that, it's important for the mothers.
absolutely. Thank
Yeah.
you for that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
of course. Of course.
Yeah, thank you for acknowledging the sisters. You know, we appreciate that. You know, especially at this time where we have that narrative of, you know, the people are saying, black women are unprotected and black men don't care about black women and da 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 da. Thank
Mhm.
you for acknowledging the sisters in that moment. And
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear about your father, you not having that relationship until adulthood.
Mhm.
Have you ever been able to really speak to him about what led to that or what caused that?
Yes. However, he is not in the right position now in his life to admit to certain wrongs. He is still dealing with that hurt and pain. So I'm actually his physical reminder of all the hurt and pain he's done to others. So when he sees me,
Mm,
he sees almost like the man that he could have been if he handled his trauma correctly in a way. Um,
mm,
So I think that my relationship with my father is great where it is. And I think that I am so blessed to at least have him and, take the good and the bad from him and be able to decipher as a man moving forward, what do I want to stand for? What do I want to be? Um, so yeah, I think the relationship is always going to be ever evolving, and I think that it's important to at least not give up on them, not give up on those that have done wrong to you, but at least try to make the attempt, and not come in to a relationship with resent or with hatred, but maybe just with an open mind and maybe an open heart and vulnerability.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that was good. That's really good. That's a good perspective to have, because some people would have resentment. A lot of people, who are watching this probably do have some
Right.
resentment. A lot of young men
Oh yeah.
who didn't have that father figure growing up,
Hmm.
they still harbor a lot of resentment.
Yeah.
What work did you do within yourself to release that anger and to release that resentment? What
Mm-hmm.
forgiveness work did you do?
It's hard to really say because there was never hatred in my heart. It was more so
Mm,
curiosity in my heart to know where I come from, whether it's good or bad. If it's bad, at least I know. At least I know how I can progress with it, how I can take this baton and run my lap with it the best that I can in my abilities. Um, I think that for those that have issues with certain dynamics with their parents, or even coming from a single parent household, whether it's your father or your mother, I think just knowing that forgiveness is very important, but I think that you need to forgive yourself first before you can forgive someone else. Because
mm,
once you forgive yourself, you kind of move with a different step, almost a different, drum to your beat. So I think that when you're able to let go of things that you're harboring within you, whether it's going to counseling, whether it's speaking to good people in your circle who care about you, whether it's, meditation, whether it's any creative artistic expression. I think if you find some sort of medium to express those things out of, um, it naturally just comes. So, yeah, I think if you know what you're good at, just express it through there.
wow.
Yeah.
That was good. That's good. I'm like
Thank you.
going through the Rolodex in my head, like,
I hope it wasn't too much. I hope everybody's, on board with me and where I'm going with the
yeah.
process.
No, that was perfect. I definitely don't think that was too much. I feel like people really need to hear those tools because a lot of people that's what they do this for. That's what they engage in these videos
Yeah.
for is to hear
Hmm.
these clear practices. Like what can I do now? You know
Yep.
what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Somebody heard your story and was like, "Hey, that's me."
Hmm.
What now to get to that space,
Right.
so that I can kind of be open to that relationship or
Hmm.
just accept it for what it is,
Yeah.
and move forward.
Exactly. And this, how has healed men affected your life with who you are as an adult today?
Mm. How has healed men affected my life? Wow. Honestly, I would really have to say healed men have taught me to trust men. You
Mm.
know, it's kind of I'm blaming all the healed brothers for all the arguments I'll be having with my sisters. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Because I am unapologetically the black woman in the
Mm-hmm.
room who's like, hold on, y'all. You know, when the sisters, when we come together in the summer, you know, it's always gonna be a couple sisters who like, man, fuck these niggas. They all the same. And
Feel
I'm
that,
normally
yeah.
the sister who's like, hold on, like, let's think about this, you know,
Mm-hmm.
wait a minute, to the point that I even had to check myself
Mm,
because I was speaking from a place of privilege. And the place of privilege that I was speaking from is I've been privileged to experience healed men.
right.
I've been privileged to be loved the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And it may not have been but by my father, it may not have been by the people that you expected to come from.
Mm-hmm.
But my brother, who I was literally just texting before we started this, my brother loves me the way a brother should love a sister. And he's
Amen.
always loved me that way. My brother has always protected me that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen my brother went through the same stuff I went through. And I
Mm-hmm.
watched my brother go through his healing journey. I watched my brother find a wife, be a father to daughters
Amen.
and a son, and raise them
Amen.
in the
Black
right way.
fathers,
Come
yes.
on now, you know, and
Important.
refuses to
Yeah.
move anywhere away from his children. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I watched my brother manifest a blended family with the mother of his first children, her now husband. They all be at the games together. Even my
Oh
father,
wow,
he
that's
said, you know,
beautiful.
right. My father said to me, that shit is weird. He said, I show up to the games and she there with her husband, he there with his wife, you know.
Our
But my
family.
father, right, my father is an unhealed brother. So he
Mhm.
sees healed brothers and it's shocking to him in a sense, you know. But my brother is that example of a healed man for my father, who is his father, you
Yep.
know. So I've been privileged to be loved the right way. You know, in relationships, I've encountered some healed brothers and some brothers who have been on a journey of healing.
Mm.
And in my past relationships, I learned that I was emotionally detached by being in a relationship with a man who was emotionally vulnerable. And he
Wow.
taught me, a brother taught me how to tap into my emotions. He's the one who sparked that interest into me being more vulnerable and showing
Wow.
me what a safe space looks like. You know what I'm saying?
That's so powerful.
So when I'm speaking to my sisters and I'm like, hold on, I also had to check myself and realize that it's a privilege for me to have encountered these brothers. And I recognize that not every sister can say that. Not every sister can say that she's been loved by a healed man.
Mhm.
So I'm grateful, you know, to all the
Mhm.
healed brothers who's crossed my path, from friends to partners to family. All the healed brothers who's crossed my path, I appreciate you and I thank you. The friends who've never tried to make a sexual pass or made me uncomfortable, because some sisters can't say that they had that. And
Yeah.
I realized that, you know, some sisters don't genuinely do not feel safe around men. And I apologize to
Woo.
my sisters who haven't experienced that, but I
Mhm.
promised you these healed brothers are out here, and these brothers who are healing, because we're all constantly healing, right? We're all
Yeah. It's
constantly growing
a
and
journey.
evolving.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's definitely, I appreciate the privilege. Being around healed men has taught me that manhood is a real thing. You know, they've taught me that it's possible. That brother, those brothers are out there, that those safe spaces, those protectors,
Yep.
those leaders, you know, those wise brothers who are vulnerable and open and emotionally tapped in and can communicate. Everything that's on your list is out
They out
there,
there.
lady.
They're
It's
real.
out there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was just having this conversation with a friend who is a black woman, and she was mentioning to me that she doesn't feel safe around black
Mm,
men. Whenever she's walking down the street, she feels she feels like she might have to protect herself and very guarded, and doesn't really know how to love and care for a black man, but at the same time, duality wise, look at them and be scared. So it's kind of like this friction, this tension between how do I love a black man, but how am I also scared of one at the same time? How can I say
mm,
that I want a black man as a future husband, but at the same time, I'm scared of this dude who is just being him. He's just standing on the corner. He's just walking by, you know, how, how would you, what would you tell to women, as advice to maybe not be so guarded, or maybe, you know, be a little bit more receptive or open to the men that are coming, you know, at you appropriately and with respect and dignity? How would you tell those women to be more receptive?
Honestly, King, first off, thank you for asking that question because I was really genuinely hoping that we could have this conversation,
Yeah, we got
uh, especially for the sisters, because I know a lot of sisters who are in that these men are all the same, and black women ain't safe out here. And I feel you, and I know where that's coming from. My recommendation, honestly, is, and once again, I'm acknowledging my privilege of experiencing healed,
it.
wellness centered men.
Yep.
When I say this, I'm acknowledging that privilege. But my advice is we have to isolate and separate our experiences.
Mm,
As a healed sister or a healing sister, we have to be more committed to our healing than we are to our trauma. And
mm,
we cannot meet people, men, women, anybody, we cannot meet people with our trauma. So when you meet a brother and you automatically assume that he is going to harm you, that he's going
mhm.
to abuse you, that's what triggers that fear, right?
Yep.
That fear is triggered because we connect it to prior experience of abuse, of hurt, of trauma.
Yep.
When we lead with our trauma, you're automatically going to connect that negative experience, and that fear is triggered.
Yep.
But if we lead with the possibility of healing, that opens us up to being vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
That opens us up to the possibility that this brother might do you right.
Yep.
The energy we are putting out there is a wellness centered energy. Therefore, we should attract nothing but wellness. And it's not to say that you're not going to be tried, but it's also to say that you gave the opportunity for wellness to be done.
Mm,
We want to be mindful about leading with trauma because we don't want to paint everyone with that vision of being scary, of being unsafe, of being abusive, when in actuality, you could be passing up a lot of good brothers who
yep.
really don't feel safe around you
Mm,
because you are guarded,
yeah.
and we have to empathy. I am because you are. We are a
Yeah.
reflection of each other.
Yep.
And as opposed to assuming that he's going to be abusive, how about we start to assume that possibly he may be a safe space?
Right.
Possibly he may be a protector. Yes, you are right.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible that it could be some trauma. It's possible that he could be abusive, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also possible that he could be well.
Mm,
It's also possible that he could be a protector. And I think
mm,
we have to focus on the brothers. This is my attitude. We got to extinguish the brothers who ain't men. We
mm.
got to extinguish the ones who ain't men. We got to extinguish them by not giving them our energy, not giving them our divine sacred space. We can't keep allowing them access. You know
Yep.
what I'm saying? We have to pour our energy into the kings of this world, into the brothers who build us up and protect us, and they give us divine light and divine protection, and that divine leadership energy. We have to
Yep.
pour our energy into them. So
Yeah.
my advice, sisters, is to lead with healing, lead with the possibility that he's going to do right. The
Mm-hmm.
possibility. And even if he doesn't, know that you are well, you are protected. If he
Mm-hmm.
hurts you, you are a healer and you are healing. So you will
Mm-hmm.
be well. That's his own karma he gonna have to deal with.
Yep.
That's his own negative intentions and responsibility that he's gonna have to feed and eat those words and eat
Yep.
those actions. He's gonna have to feast on his own beast. You have to be mindful to truly, truly, truly just dwell in the energy of wellness and be
Mm.
vulnerable and be open and focus your energy on that which is well as opposed to that which is trauma. So that
Right.
would be my advice to the sisters.
Whew. I don't even know where to begin with the gems. They're just all over me. Thank you for sharing that, because that was amazing. I loved all of that.
My question for you, first off, thank you. My question for you is how, as a brother,
Uh-huh.
um, what do you think brothers can do to help sisters feel safer and to feel, because especially walking
Mm.
down the street, I live in New York City. Walking down the street, I can definitely connect with that. You walk past a crowd of guys and you like, okay, what's gonna happen? Is it this gonna go well?
Mhm.
I definitely can connect with that feeling. So what do you feel, if anything, that brothers can do to help sisters feel better?
Great question. It's going to be a little loaded.
Okay.
Um, Catcalling, to me, in my opinion, comes from a place of not knowing how to approach a woman, but also I think it stems from a little bit of insecurity because there was never a proper way from generation to generation to be passed down the right way to approach a woman in mainstream, in media, in any facet that we look at. I don't think that there's been a consistent role or a consistent way for a man to approach a woman, even just walking down the street or even just allowing a woman to feel comfortable without feeling like she is just an object, just meat,
Mm,
or just for pleasure. So I think that the best way for a man to create these safe spaces for women would be to start with yourself and know, are you really approaching this woman because you want something that she probably does not want, and she's not going to be receptive to your energy? Or do you actually want to build something and provide value and love to this person? So I
mm,
think it comes from a place of knowing that you have to be aware as a man. You have to be aware of your thoughts. You have to be aware of your lower self, the demons that you carry with you. You have to be aware of um, all these things. And I think that when you begin to ask yourself, what would God do in this situation? I think that you'd be able to make the right decisions.
mm. Oh, ask yourself, what would God do?
What would God do in this situation? If I see an attractive young lady and she's walking down the street, I'm not going to call her out her name. I'm definitely,
Mm,
most definitely not ever going to put my hands on her and grab her by the arm or anything of that nature. If I want to approach this woman, I am going to approach her with respect. I'm going to approach her with just common courtesy. Hello, my name is Malik.
mm,
What's your name? How's your day thus far? Everything okay? Or even just, making it comfortable by just smiling. Smiling at someone. Smiling at someone lets them know that you are not there to harm them. You are not there to abuse them in any facet. So I think that when you start to take those cues and nuances, um, you'll begin to see your world start to open up.
mm. Wow, smiling at someone, asking, "Are
Simple.
you okay?" That I know for sure that will help a lot of sisters.
Yeah.
That would help a lot of sisters feel better if a brother just said, "Hey, are you okay?"
Yeah.
That definitely that safety check in.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be any approach where it has to be out of lust. It doesn't have to be an approach of out of always wanting someone or wanting to drain someone, a woman, of their energy. But it could just be as simple as, I hope you have a great day. I hope where you're going right now, I hope you get there safely. I hope that tomorrow is an even better day. Like just simple things to let them know that they are cared for and they're just not out here. Because as much as we want to say that, men, we carry a huge weight on our shoulders, women carry a lot of armor on them too. They guard themselves
Absolutely.
just as much because they don't know how they are going to be approached. They don't know how a man is going to communicate with them. So I think that when you understand that, as you said, Queen, that I'm a reflection of you and you are a reflection of me, once you put that into your mind, it becomes kind of a practice that you can tap into.
Mm, seeing ourselves as reflection, having that empathy,
Yeah.
aside from just the gender, aside from are you a man, are you a woman, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Aside from any of that, just as a human being,
Yep.
I see you, I
Hmm.
hear you, I feel you, and
Hmm.
connecting with that divine energy, that's key.
Yeah, especially I feel as though even as we mentioned during these times where the narrative is, and it's true to an extent, that Black women aren't safe or that Black women are protected, And it's true that a lot of Black women are protected, a lot of Black women don't feel safe. I just think that the women that don't feel safe, if you can just take the time to know where they're coming from and actually listen and not be reactive to the things and the traumas that they are dealing with in a day-to-day basis, then you can kind of have a better, softer landing, a softer approach for getting to know that person and being able to give value to them, whether it's teaching how to be more vulnerable, whether it's, allowing them to just have somebody to vent to. I think that, you're able to create these different moments with people depending upon if you listen and if you actually understand where they are right now.
Mm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Creating a safe space. You know,
Hmm.
we all have to become the safe space. That's the thing. The safe space is more than just a physical space.
Oh,
We
yeah.
have the possibility to manifest as a safe space for the
Hmm.
people that we love and that we care about, and even the people who we don't know, which we should also love and care about. You know, we have
Hmm.
to manifest as a safe space.
Yeah. And
Thank you for that.
especially, of course, thank you for receiving that. I appreciate it. But I think even just not even as a gender, but I think just as a community as a whole, as a race, I think that even, for example, this is always a common thing when I would go to the gym before Corona and doing like a little head nod to a brother that I see, like little things, little nuances, like, hey, how you doing? How's your day? If is everything all right? Like those little things can make or break, someone's day. Like it can affect the rest of their day traumatically. So I think that if we as a community just do those with ourselves, just walking by each other, just, checking in with one another, it's important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. 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 Um, One question that I have been wanting to ask you
Mhm.
is how can women be more in tune with their intuition?
Oh, oh wow. Okay. That's a very layered question because of course, being a holistic wellness practitioner and consultant, the first thing that comes to my mind for me is, spirituality.
Mm.
Of course,
Hmm.
spirituality, to tap into that divine intuition, especially for women, because we have it in an elevated sense.
Yep.
A huge aspect of the divine feminine is intuition,
Hmm.
so we have that oshun, that solar plexus chakra that
Hmm.
holds that intuition, that yemeya, that sacral
Hmm.
chakra that also holds intuition, and then our third eye that also holds intuition. And everybody has these chakras, but for women it's heightened and it's elevated. Oshun and yemeya are all female or woman deities, so
Hmm.
they are the divine beings who guard those sacred gateways of the sacral chakra and
Mm.
the solar plexus chakra. So my advice would be to tap
Mm.
into your spirit, and you can do that by doing physical work. For my sisters who are like, oh, I ain't into all the chakra work and I ain't that spiritual,
Right.
start out by taking a spiritual bath.
Mm.
All the sisters like to bathe. We all
Cleansing
like a little
yourself. Oh
self
yeah.
care. Yeah,
I've
so
never
take
met a
you,
woman that doesn't like to take care of themselves.
take you
It's
a little
important.
spiritual bath. Really,
Mm.
like, care for yourself intentionally. And the key to
Yeah.
a spiritual bath is about intentional care, intentional bathing. So when we are taking a spiritual bath, we're putting tools in our water that will heighten or increase certain chakras and attract certain energy. So
Mm.
and a spiritual bath is cleansing. It cleanses our aura, our
Hmm.
external energy fields, as well as our internal energy field. So if you want to increase your intuition and tap in, start with the spiritual bath that's guided by the solar plexus chakra as well as the sacral chakra. You want to put a little Epsom salt in your water. Start out, that Epsom salt for relaxation and to, really relax the muscles and open
Hmm.
you up so you can start to even be open to the energy. Then you want to add a
Right.
little honey for Oshun. Put a dash of cinnamon in there for Oshun. You
Mm.
can add a couple dashes of sea salt for Yeye, for Yemaya. You want to
Hmm.
add a little bit of lavender. Maybe a eucalyptus leaf would be good. You also want to add some orange pills. That would be good as well for Oshun. attuned, that solar plexus chakra energy, which is where the divine intuition, the creativity, the divine feminine dwells.
Mm.
So take a spiritual bath, join the wellness community. We constantly talk about intuition, and we constantly talk about tapping into that divine feminine, how to open up that third eye chakra, so that would really be my first recommendation. That's like the light version. And then because you could do Reiki, you could do so many things.
Mm-hmm.
Meditation is key. You can do meditation to focus on opening up that third eye, visioning that third eye opening up. You
Mm.
can definitely do that. Trauma blockage, heal yourself, recognize trauma blockages that are of trauma that are blocking your third eye and causing it
Right.
to close and be shut down,
Mm-hmm.
blocking your solar plexus. See where pain is dwelling or what triggers that feeling in your
Right.
solar plexus chakra with trauma that you think on, and you'll feel a physical pain. You'll feel physical energy holding on to your solar plexus. That's a trauma block. You feel it at the bottom of your gut. That's your sacral chakra. That's
Mm.
a womb blockage. So all of that is blocking your intuition. I could go on for days, but that sounds like
I love it.
it's a lot of work that we can do to tap into our intuition. But start with a spiritual bath, start with a little meditation, and then really just start journaling so you can work through those trauma blockages. What are constant thoughts that you are having that triggers those physical feelings of blockage in your solar plexus and in your sacral area, as well as your third eye.
Mm.
And also, when you try to tap into your intuition, what's happening? What are you thinking about? What blocks it? What thoughts, what fears block you
Mm.
from tapping into your intuition? So doing some journaling work behind that. And then follow up with somebody. If you can follow up with a therapist, join the wellness community, patreon.com/the Queen Poe. We're literally in the group
Amen.
chat now talking about building and tapping into our chakras and doing chakra work and all that good stuff. So yeah, it's a lot that you can do, but it's possible. Don't
Mm.
give up. Don't give up. Don't feel like you don't have it, for men and for women. Don't
Yeah.
feel like you don't have it. We all have that divine intuition. We all have it. So that's the key. Don't give up. It's something out there that'll work for you.
Amen. There's something out there for everyone.
Absolutely.
Might not have the exact same, routine, but if you can pick up on certain things that maybe work to your benefit, then that's,
Absolutely.
yeah,
How do
tap
you
in.
feel about men tapping into their intuition? First
Oh,
off, do you feel like men have intuition?
I
And
know
how do
I
you feel
do.
about them
So
tapping
the
into
answer is
it?
yes. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely think it is heightened for women, and that the level of receiving those different visions, receiving those higher feelings of possibility, I think it's definitely heightened in women, but I don't think that it's not visible or it's not there for men. Um, I think ways that a man can develop that are, whew, like how you said, letting go of trauma, beginning with what are some pains within you mentally and emotionally that have been hindering you from moving forward in life, whether it's family issues, whether it's a draining job, whether it's draining people, whether it's you have addiction issues, you have issues with spending on materialistic things, just taking account for all those different things, um, and applying massive action. It's one thing to actually say, oh yeah, I feel like, I could be a little bit better here, I could do better here and there. But once you actually apply and actually put practice and effort towards wanting to do better and wanting to heal and grow that intuition, um, you'll definitely receive that. So meditation, you know, envisioning where you want to be, envisioning um, not even things that you want to possess, but things that you as an individual want to experience and grow through. Um, Even something as physical as exercise. Exercise doesn't always have to be lifting weights. You can exercise by doing yoga. Yoga is intense. You can exercise by doing Pilates. You can exercise by doing cardio, riding a bike in nature, or going out in nature. I think that there are a lot of different ways for men to tap into their higher selves, into their intuition. It's just a matter of massive effort.
Mm,
Yeah. Massive
absolutely.
effort and consistency, because that feel good, that instant high of, oh, I'm on a routine, I'm doing well,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it can fade and disappear, because it's like the New Year's Eve resolution where it comes and then it goes, it just leaves in March. I think
Absolutely.
that when you take it day by day, when you don't look at your schedule of exercise or meditation for tomorrow, but when you just apply effort on today and you know that you only have today, then I think that consistency will be able to just be a natural rhythm for you.
Mm, mm,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Consistency is key. Consistency,
Yeah.
being intentional with your practice and being
Mm-hmm.
consistent with it. That's definitely key. Thank you
Mm-hmm.
for that. I needed that reminder, that consistency is key. Absolutely.
It is key. It's hard
Yeah.
at times, but I think when you make time and when you recognize what is actually valuable in your life versus just tasks that you just have to get through, and what's actually important, like spending time with your family, spending time with people who care about you and want the best for you, actually spending time with yourself too. I think that
Yeah.
not enough people spend more time doing things that they want to do. um
So
so
true.
yeah. Yeah. But um ah this is another one that I wanted to ask you. Um, I hope I'm not starting any controversy with this question. It's coming from pure intention. It's not to cause a disarray or a stir or
I'm
argument.
excited. What's up?
um, let's see. Do you feel that there's strain or that there's continuous division between us men and women, and that it's inevitable? Do you feel as though that there can be some joining, or that is just inevitable for us to just always be at odds as a
Mm,
as a race, but also just as a human population?
wow. Wow. That's a very layered question.
Yeah.
I'll start off absolutely with the is there a strain between an intentional strain at that between men and women? Are we speaking
Mhm.
specifically about black men and black women?
Yeah, let's start with specifically black men and black women. Yes.
Okay. There is an intentional strain. There's an intentional strain
Mm-hmm.
between black men and black women, and it's caused by a variety of things. Um, there was a turn of the tide that had occurred, so I'm about to get into it, just a little bit of black history, just a little bit.
Everybody take
Um,
notes. Some of this already.
so there was a turn of the tide. If you study black folks before colonization, right? It wasn't uncommon in a lot of dynasties for the women to rule, for the women to
Mm-hmm.
lead. The queen was the queen of the pack
Yeah.
for a reason, and the king supported her. He was the protector, and she was the intuition. You know what I'm saying? She was, in a sense, the leader, and he was the one that held down the fort and made sure everything was cool and everybody was in order and respecting the queen.
Right.
Um, and then there was a turn of the tide, and that turn of the tide came through a lot of ways. There were internal wars. If you study ancient Kemet, if you study even before that, if you study the Moors, in the relationship with the Moors, amongst the Moors,
Mm-hmm.
and how they handled, the Moorish community. There was a lot of internal division that had occurred that caused a turn of the tide, and then colonization occurred, and they came in and they just, they accentuated the division, they elevated the division, and was, talking to the brothers like, you doing more, this is,
Mm-hmm.
and created that division. And then they took us, you know what
Yep.
I'm saying? And when they took us, they created even more division, and they stripped us of what we knew, to the point that they stripped us really of the memory of who we are as divine beings, which is a problem. And that's something that, we as a people, we have to go back and we got to do our research and we got to study, and we need to study with the intention of respecting each other. The
Mm-hmm.
ultimate thing that was stripped from us was respect. Um, we lost respect for each other. We lost respect for ourselves. And that respect was stripped away and replaced with competition. you
Yes.
know so there's a competitive nature in a sense. That's one of the issues. One of the issues is a lack of respect. That lack of respect was replaced with the second issue that we have amongst black men and black women, which is competition. And then also the third issue is the intentional stripping of the black man from the black woman, because there was a time that we were restoring our black family post-slavery.
Yep.
There was a time we were definitely on the road, and we got to give our ancestors credit,
Oh
because
yeah.
a lot of our great great grandparents,
They were
those
building.
sharecroppers, they were building, they were
Yeah.
rebuilding, they were recognizing that, this ain't right. This ain't how we supposed to be. We're not supposed to have this much division. We got to think, in slavery, the black man wasn't allowed to protect the black woman. It's not that he didn't want to. He wasn't allowed. He wasn't allowed to. So that caused the black woman to oftentimes lose a lot of respect for the brothers. But once we became free, and sisters were able to realize that, oh, at your nature, you do want to protect me. You do want to care for me. And now that we are not under the same level of oppression, because we're still under oppression, but
Yep.
now that we're not under the same level of oppression, I see you trying. But then the new form of slavery comes in, and then a new form of slavery comes in. And then eventually they realize, you know what? We can't have black men in the household at all. So they just take our brothers and they put them in prisons, it causing a lot of black women to have to enhance their sacred masculine and become leaders of their household again, even when they didn't want to.
A
And then the
strong woman.
feminist movement, absolutely. Then the feminist movement came in. And unfortunately, a lot of sisters adopted a white woman's movement. I ain't trying to ruffle nobody's feathers out there, but the feminist movement is a white woman's movement. And I'll just quickly say, because white women wanted more say-so in their households. Black women were already in the space where we were doing it all. We were doing it on our own. We were working in houses and being housekeepers and earning a living. We didn't have the oppression that white women felt like they had. We were already doing it. White women were saying we want to do more. Black women was really saying we need some help. But
Yes.
unfortunately, because the feminist movement was dying down, they called on the sisters, and the sisters, seeking that help that they thought that they were getting from white women, they joined the movement and didn't, without even realizing it, in return, kind of became competitors with the brothers as opposed to being partners with the brothers, which once again emphasized that competition and that lack of respect. And a lot of brothers became defensive, and some brothers decided to just walk away and decided, you know what, I don't even want to fight this battle. So they walk away and they go and do other things and partner with other people and so on and so forth. So it's a lot that goes into the intentional division between black men and black women, but it can be undone. And I think it can be undone by sisters recognizing that we are womanist, we're not feminist. We are womanists, so research the womanist movement, my sisters. We are womanists. Black women are not saying we want to do more. We are saying we've been doing it. We want to make space for the brothers to step in and support us and to do their part as well in a safe and sacred space while still honoring our voices, which I feel like a lot of brothers are willing to do. I also feel like, for the brothers have to take accountability and recognize the trauma that they've been through, but
And
also the
perpetuate.
trauma that, absolutely, thank you, the trauma that they are perpetuating on the black woman. Black men have to come back and reclaim their rightful throne as kings. And as you just so eloquently explained earlier, acknowledging what is the definition of a man and start embodying some of those features. But it's going to take some intentional work. The same way it took intentional work to divide and conquer, we have to do intentional work to come together and heal. But it's possible.
Where's the soundboard cannon right now? That's what I need right now.
I want a
Thank
DMX
you.
soundboard. I want a DMX sound.
I love it. That was incredible. Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
Woo! Yeah. What that made me think of a saying that Minister Malcolm said. He said, "Racism is like a Cadillac. They make a new version almost every year or every decade. It's always
Yes,
a
come on now.
continuous, gradual. everlasting system in place for us to never break out of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. How do you feel though? How do you feel about this? Do you feel like there's a divide, and how do you feel about the divide?
I definitely do recognize that there is intentional division that sometimes is done by us, but also not done by us. Um, whether it's narratives created within the media, whether it is, um, certain parties that are looking to um, kind of be infiltrator just to prevent certain, joining of the Black woman and the Black man. So I definitely recognize and see that it is continuing. However, I do know that it is possible. It does take a lot of intention. It does take a lot of will and courage for not only a man, but also a woman. Because again, we're dealing with those that don't recognize that we are in these times of we need to come together. It's not a matter of we should, it's a matter of we need to at this
Absolutely.
point. We're at
Absolutely.
the point of no return. We're that deep into um, our ancestors and what they've had to feel and deal with. So I think it's only right that not only just honoring ourselves, but honoring them and what they've had to give and give up, what they've had to sacrifice, what they've had to endure, just so that we can get to this point. I'm not saying that we don't deal with hardships. I'm not saying that we don't deal with issues amongst each other, either within our gender, either within certain things in our environments. I just know that it's going to take a lot of effort. And I think that there is no better woman for the Black man than a Black woman,
Hmm.
because there's no one who cares, who has as much love and compassion, even when they're still trying to sew up their own wounds.
Mm.
That makes sense.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. Someone who has as much love and compassion even when they're trying to sew up their own wounds.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. And do you think that that's a benefit um, for the Black woman? Do you think it's beneficial for Black women to have that compassion and have that empathy even in the midst of their own healing? Um,
Mm.
do you think that's beneficial for them to do that?
I think that it depends on where you're at in your life and if you can be receptive to it and if you can provide it, because it's one thing to receive someone, but it's another thing to receive someone who is going through their own path of healing, like you mentioned earlier. um, I think it can be beneficial under the right circumstance, happenstance, and terms. But again, you meet people for a season and a reason, and we cannot excuse duality. We cannot excuse lessons. We cannot excuse your own personal path. And if it aligns with other people, um, just being willing, as you mentioned earlier, to take the opportunity to give them the opportunity,
Mm,
So it's possible. I
absolutely.
just think that men need to provide that safer landing so that a woman can open up and take off her armor and, be able to enjoy, because I don't feel as though that a lot of Black women have truly been able to enjoy their divine feminine and expression and just wanting to just be a woman and just express themselves without having to look over their shoulder or having to react out of trauma because of past experiences that they've dealt with men. So I think that it's up to us as men to really put the work in so that we can see the results as a community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's reciprocity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that is reciprocity. One of my sister queens, we were having a sister circle meeting yesterday. And she was like, what is truly a relationship without reciprocity?
Mm.
Right? Because in a
Oh my God.
relationship, there must be, shout out to my sister queens. On it
I
now.
love it.
And she was just like, it's in a lot of relationships, they're not really actually relationships. Sometimes we label situations as relationships, but if there is no reciprocity, you ain't really in a relationship with anybody,
Mhm.
family, friends, partners, anybody. And I
Mhm.
think, what you're speaking on is men being reciprocitous, you know,
Mhm.
women being reciprocitous, making sure that, kind of full circle, like you said
Mhm.
earlier, making sure that you bringing something to the table,
Mhm.
but also what are you receiving from the table? What is your takeaway? What are you giving? And then what is your takeaway?
Mhm.
And are they balanced in a
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. Are you
Yeah.
two on the same frequency? Are you guys in tune with your path, but are you in tune with, habits? Are you in tune with maybe being there when they're not really at their best, when they are, still trying to deal and overcome certain obstacles and hurdles and going through these peaks and valleys? I think it needs to be reciprocated. It can't just be one-sided. It can't just be, only the woman can take care of the man. No, I think men, you provide so much more than you realize. You provide much more than anything that's just physical. You provide the emotional support when a woman is going through a roller coaster and hiatus through her life, just trying to live her life and fulfill her purpose here. You are able to create, um, again, softer landings for them to be able to go through that expression of emotional healing, being able to communicate, what their thoughts are. And, you know, I think it's important that we recognize that as men, we offer much more than anything just physical. We offer a lot, and I think that once you realize that you can provide value outside of just things that are in between your legs, but you can provide value from up here, I think that it's a win for not only you, but for the woman that you love and your family.
This is a good one. Okay. This is a great conversation, because a lot of men and women need to hear this. There
Mm,
are so many sisters who are watching this, like, so how do I know? What do
mm,
I look for in a man?
yeah.
And there's so many brothers like, well, I don't know what the hell she want. I don't know what to give, and
Right.
you just literally gave the gems for all of that. You answered that question for brothers and for sisters. What should brothers be given and what should sisters be looking for when it comes to a relationship? Because a lot of sisters end up in toxic relationships. And I say
Mm.
toxic because I feel like that term is so overutilized right
Oh
now.
my God, it's so mainstream right now.
Come
Yeah.
on, like
Yeah.
really. But in this sense, it's befitting.
Yes.
But a lot of sisters and brothers end up in toxic relationships because we don't really know what we're looking for. We
Mm.
just go for what feels good in the
Yep.
moment.
Mm-hmm.
For right now, where I am right now, this just feels good. And sometimes we don't even define, does this just feel good physically? Is this
Mm-hmm.
just feeling good mentally? Is
Mm-hmm.
this just feeling good spiritually, or is it
Mm-hmm.
holistically well? And I feel like what you are speaking on is holistic wellness in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
What men can provide, and also what sisters can provide, but
Absolutely.
specifically what men can provide in a relationship to
Mm-hmm.
make a sister feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
Because for a lot of women, we just want to feel safe in relationships. We want to feel okay. We want to feel protected in relationships, and that's not easy to find.
Yes.
Sometimes you'll get into a situation with a partner, with a man, and you will feel like you still have to be guarded. You'll
Mm.
still have to look at him with the side eye. My sisters who be
Yeah.
feeling like they can't trust their partners. So if you can't trust him, he's not really a partner.
You
If you
can
don't
trust.
feel
Yeah.
safe, you're not in a relationship if you don't feel safe with your partner holistically,
Mm.
spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically. You should feel safe with your partner. You should be able to have those conversations about the crazy thoughts that you've been thinking, or that new thing that you want to try, or
Mm-hmm.
challenging perspectives and having moments of vulnerability and open. A relationship really is vulnerability in general, and always, from physical to mental, spiritual, holistically, it's about vulnerability and being able to say, I'm open, I'm bare, and this is who I am,
Yep.
and both people being a safe space, but oftentimes we're naturally a safe space. Most times, most
Hmm.
women
Yeah.
are naturally a safe space. And if brothers could provide that in return, that would be divine. That would be divine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think just a quick side note for men that are listening, or even women that are listening that want to provide this to a family member that is a man, or that, is maybe a young teenager, young boy going to be a man. I think that, the ego is so key in certain situations, but I think that it can be misplaced. I think your ego is good for certain things in certain times, but just living and driving completely off of ego can be disastrous. And I think that when you're acting out of ego, because of lack of work that needs to be done from healing, and insecurities arise, and you have to be so guarded, but you also have to kind of live your life as a facade. I think you kind of step into relationships looking for power and control versus a partner and love. I think that you're looking for more so, um, something that you can drain, but you cannot necessarily give back. You can't fill their cup back. Um, and I think both parties should come together with their cup already full and kind of add on to one another. Um, I just think that men, we can definitely be a little bit more aware of, are we pursuing a woman out of power and control versus are we pursuing them for actually wanting to build something special and unique with them, you know, especially if you're going to start a family with that person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That ego is a real thing. How do you think men can recognize if their ego is a bit too much,
Mm,
is out of control? What are some signs that they can look for within themselves?
I think if your external world is not reflecting what you feel inside. For example, if you feel that you are the ish and you feel as though that you have obtained certain things in your life that make you successful and that you don't necessarily need anybody, if you feel those things and those emotions and think those thoughts, but then the external doesn't reflect that, I think that there's a discrepancy there between the two. And I think that having good people to be able to be honest with you, and you not be offended by where they are coming from, I think is very important. If people can be honest with you and you actually heed to their word and their counseling, then it can kind of change the trajectory of where you are headed versus where you currently are.
Mm.
Yeah.
So being open to counsel
Yeah.
and accountability,
Accountability. Yeah.
mm, which brings it back to that minding your tribe that you said earlier.
It's always everlasting. It's always coming back and recycling.
Absolutely.
Yeah, most definitely. Um, Let's see. Where are we at? Do you feel, how do you feel right now? Are we still
I
good?
feel good. Yeah, we're definitely still good. I'm enjoying the conversation.
Okay.
I'm just excited for all the people who I know is going to be fed off of this conversation because I feel fed. So
Well,
I know that some folks are going to be like, this is it. So I'm excited for the people who are watching this and learning.
well, thank you for having me and building with me, and I appreciate being on your platform tremendously.
Always
Thank
love.
you. Hmm. Let's see. Um, how can men be more honest
Oh. How can men be more honest?
and not live in
Mm,
shame?
wow. How can men be more honest and not live in shame?
Mm-hmm.
The first thing that comes to my mind is safe spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think for a man to be honest, he has to know that wherever he is and whomever he's being honest with is a safe space. Um, and when I say safe space, I mean someone who will listen, even if the honesty is not feeding their wellness in the moment. You know, even if their honesty is hurting them or triggering them, you will listen and be open, and validation. We all need our feelings and our emotions and our thoughts validated, even if you disagree, to
Mm.
validate. So I feel like once a man knows that it's a safe space, that triggers a sense of vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
Because to be honest, it takes a level of vulnerability, it takes a level of accountability. So I think men can be more honest by tapping into their safe spaces, acknowledging with gratitude their safe spaces, whether if it's with their friends, their partner,
Mm-hmm.
their family members, acknowledging with gratitude their safe spaces. Thank you for being a safe space. You know, I feel real comfortable talking to you, bro. So what you think
My
about
pleasure.
this?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
and really just tapping into that vulnerability and that accountability, asking themselves the how questions. How do I feel? How
Mm-hmm.
did I get here? How did I stumble upon this experience?
Mm.
What did I do? What was my intention? What
Mm-hmm.
was I thinking? You know, and doing that work within themselves. They could
Mm-hmm.
journal it out if they need to, but really doing that thought process and then verbalizing it. You know, verbalizing it for real. You know, really like stripping down to the pure, not what you want, what you think people want to hear, not
Mm-hmm.
what you think sounds good, but stripping down to the pure intention of it all.
Right.
This is the action that I did, or this is what I said, this is my intention, or this was my intention, this is the why I did it or why I said it, this is
Mm-hmm.
how I got to that point, and this is how I feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like, literally, that's the keys to honesty right there. Once you do that inventory for self and
Mm-hmm.
you can verbalize that in a safe space, that really, I think that's how men can be more honest and also recognize that there will be consequences,
Yeah.
you know, whether good or bad, and be willing to accept those consequences. You know, I feel like a lot of brothers, they shun away from honesty because of the consequence that may follow, you
Yep.
know, especially when dealing with sisters. It's like, oh, I want to tell her the truth, but she might not want to talk to me no more. She might not want to have sex with me no more. She might not, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and they still want to keep access. They still want to have access to you,
Yep.
and not have the consequence to their real action or their real intention. So I think once you are able to say, like, this is a safe space, you're able to share your honesty and share what happened and everything that went behind it, and then also be willing to be accountable and accept whatever consequences that come with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Being
that's how
okay with
brothers could be.
absolutely being okay with whatever result.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Why
that's
do you think some brothers kind of move away from being completely honest at all times? What do you think triggers men to say, you know what, I don't know if she need to know the whole truth right now?
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, for me, I think that having fear in your heart is never a good place to live. But specifically for men, I think that just wanting to have your cake and eat it too, kind of like you mentioned, you know, again, you have to have some discernment with not only yourself, but with the person that you're dealing with. Because we, the only thing that we have is, as we mentioned, is our name, our word, and the time that we're leaving. But in that in between, that thing that we're living off of, that time, you don't want to waste someone's time to the point where they are losing out on experiences and other people with lessons because you are not willing to own up and take responsibility and hold yourself accountable for either wrong that you did or even things that you feel might not be wrong, but you just want to share anyways. I think
Mm,
that knowing that everything will be okay in the end and that you are establishing yourself from a place of honesty and transparency, it takes a level of courage to do so. And I think that once you recognize that, you know, it feels it feels better to actually tell the truth. It feels better to actually be honest with a woman, whether it's something you did that was bad or something that you feel, it just is. Um, just knowing that everything will be okay and everything is in divine order and time, and maybe that this is the right time for you to actually use the word.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
Wow, divine order in time.
Mm-hmm.
Divine order in time. And I feel like if so many of us just tapped into that, if we just tapped into that understanding of divine order in time,
Mm-hmm.
things would be so much more clear, so much easier if we
Mm-hmm.
tapped into that. How do you describe, or how would you define divine order?
I think when you start to see moments of synchronicity, which are moments of clarity, as you mentioned, things that just make sense, that feel right, not just the physical feeling, but your spirit feels right. You feel that happiness, that joy within certain moments that are supposed to be. Um, Even if there are moments where synchronicity is at its play, but it's not necessarily a good thing, there is wisdom within that thing that you're experiencing that you might see in hindsight and go and look back and go, huh, I wasn't feeling too great about that situation back then, but I understand why I went through it. I understand what I needed to receive from that, what I needed to pull out of that to execute for my life to come.
Mm,
Um, so I think that, synchronicity and being okay with all that has to come, especially with distractions, because we can get so busy with, our responsibilities, with our commitments and the outside world and all the distractions that it can provide, that sometimes we do lose sight and lose track of our individual self and where we are. So I think when you just check in with yourself and ask yourself, how are you feeling? How are you doing? And actually reviewing and going over things that you have kind of put to the back burner in your
yeah,
subconscious and you haven't really spent too much time to find solutions for, um, take the time to do those things because you will feel that weight begin to lift off your shoulders.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Something interesting about you is that, you are a very thoughtful human being. You know what I'm saying? You are a brother who I know for sure is well read, and more on top of that, you think. You are a thinking man. How did you get to this space of being who you are? Like, how did you get
Mhm.
here? Were you always this way, or were you intentional about becoming this man? What happened in the journey?
I think that this is definitely coming from a place of privilege. My mother definitely instilled a lot of values, ethics, and morals that were important in our household. Um, and I think that bond that we share allowed me to execute, whether going to school, whether dealing with people just in day-to-day life. Um, so it is a privilege to say that, but I think that um, it's always kind of been instilled within me. If something doesn't seem right, or if I know that um, where I am today isn't necessarily what I thought I would be or where I thought it would be, then, it takes some thought, it takes some effort to put behind where you are today. So, definitely have not always been this way. I definitely have always been a thinker and a questioner and wanting to find answers and solutions and just naturally inquisitive. I just think that when it comes to the topic or when it comes to us as a community, it definitely has developed over the years. And I think that I've had a interesting insight of seeing, um, the role of a Black man and the role of a Black woman unconsciously and consciously growing up. So, yeah, I think that I definitely am still a work in progress, and I definitely am committed to my journey of healing.
Mm,
Um, and I know that everything happened for a reason in my past, whether it was hardships, whether it was family members transcending. It was, those things make you who you are, and you kind of just have to embrace it.
Mhm.
Um, and know that everything is, again, in divine order and time.
Absolutely. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing your story. Like I'm just to hear you speak about that healing journey, and to acknowledge that you are still healing and that you are, of course,
Yes.
growing and constantly
Hmm.
evolving. What are some practices? Like, what are your go to spiritual practices, mental practices? What do
Hmm.
you do to ensure that you are intentionally evolving and growing?
Hmm. Um, for me, it's always been using my medium as a form of expression, which is either writing, or even just creating some form of art, um, and using that to channel any emotions or thoughts that I feel at the time. However, I would say that, as an adult man, as a man that's developing and still trying to figure out his way and figure out his footing, I think speaking with my elders, definitely reading a whole lot of different books from different perspectives that give me the opportunity to challenge certain thoughts, certain mindsets. Um, so reading, using my form of writing, and just having open conversations and putting myself out there, um, and not being afraid to experience. Um, it's one thing to, know everything that there is to know, but if you never experience it, if you never put it into action, if you never actually go through heartbreak, if you never actually deal with a person who's maybe having an addiction issue, if you never deal with certain experiences, you can kind of really never know the full picture in a way. So not being afraid to experience and not being afraid to honor my hurt.
Mm, come on now. Not being afraid to honor your hurt.
Yes, don't be afraid to honor your hurt, because there's lessons within pains. I mean, we call L an L for a reason. It's a lesson. So
Mm,
let's honor that. Let's honor um, pain, because pain is temporary. Though it does cause lasting effects at times, and it does cause trauma. I just think that when you honor it and when you begin the process of digging deep to unravel those issues, to become free of it, um, I think you do yourself a great service by honoring it. Yeah.
wow. Wow. That was like that whole, yeah, thank you for that. That was full of gems,
Thank
full of
you.
full of remedies, sacred remedies, practicing your art. That's your self-expression. So
Hmm.
finding the way that you self-express,
Yep.
even for people who may be watching this and maybe writing isn't your thing, but what is your tool of
Yep.
expression? What is your art? What do you enjoy doing in order to release?
Hmm.
Practicing that,
Hmm.
tapping into your elders.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Tapping into your elders and having those conversations and, learning from their experiences,
Hmm.
that's dope. Acknowledging your hurt, that's like, wow, that was a big one.
Yeah.
Acknowledging your hurt. Because a
Yeah.
lot of people run from it. A lot of people, especially men, a lot of men have been
Hmm.
told that they can't be hurt. They got to act tough. They can't be open and vulnerable. And that
Yeah.
just causes blockages.
I have such issues with that narrative being projected and continuously being perpetuated over generations and generations, because it's deprived it's deprived a stronger connection for my father and his father. It's deprived many men and women with connections of their relationship with their fathers, their uncles, their cousins, their brothers. Um, so I think that, you know, being vulnerable is not a weakness, and being able to know the strength within being vulnerable, it's important. And don't be led astray. Don't let people tell you that, you're weak because you show emotion. Don't let people tell you that, if you are honest, you are you're not justifying, the what's the saying? You need to sow your oats while you're young as a man, while women get
Mm.
taught the complete opposite. Like, women literally get taught to prepare for marriage and have children from birth, but men are taught sow your oats. have fun,
Mm-hmm.
go out there, experience. So I think that there needs to be, as you say, a level of reciprocation, correspondence.
Speaking of soya oats, something that
Mm-hmm.
we've talked about in the past is celibacy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and semen retention.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can, you are definitely a brother that I trust with this topic of semen retention.
Uh-huh.
um how do you feel about semen retention and the value of semen retention?
I would say there's no greater form of receiving as a man than self-discipline in mental and emotional, as well as sexual, and physical discipline. For me, I've been on this journey of celibacy for 2 years and some change, and
Wow,
I
two
would not,
years
2 years, yeah, 2 years now, and I would not change it for the world at all, just because the confidence and the love that you feel within, the joy you feel within, to just know that you honor who you are and you have pride and dignity with, the person that you are becoming, and that you don't always have to share your energy with someone to feel like a man. You don't always have to um, have a Rolodex of women in your phone list to make you feel macho or to make you feel like a respected man. You can feel that way with yourself. You can feel that way with practicing celibacy. You can feel that way with practicing putting down your phone or your computer and continuously watching porn and these certain things. I think that once you begin to take it day by day, and once you realize that your mind is much stronger than um, any cravings or any wants that you have, you can really just conquer anything after that. Because if you're able to conquer that, then what else is there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Definitely like that idea of building the mind
Mm-hmm.
through monitoring the physical,
Mm-hmm.
knowing when to give in and when to, subtract, when to take
Mm-hmm.
away from that physical desire, like understanding the importance of really differentiating the two.
Mm-hmm.
Differentiating the mind from the physical desire, the mind
Mm-hmm.
from the spirit, the physical from the spirit, and so on and so forth. And
Mm-hmm.
knowing that it's possible to ensure that they are all aligned, but to do that you have to
Yeah.
detach from the physical. You
Yeah.
got to detach from those physical desires, and not to say
Mm-hmm.
that the desire won't be there, but
Yeah.
it's
Of
about
course.
intentionally detaching. So what do you do when you feel the physical desire, when you like look, because I'm celibate myself,
Mm-hmm.
and even as a woman, I'm some days I'm like, listen, okay, I don't
We're
know if we can
human.
do it. Right.
We're
So
human.
what do you do when you start having those listen moments? What do
Uh-huh.
you do?
For me, it's always a mental check-in. It always comes back to the brain. And it's a matter of, am I feeling this because I'm feeling it out of lust and craving, or am I feeling this out of love and wanting to actually share that exchange with a woman? Um,
Mm,
I think that men, once you begin to see, the mental fortitude begin to progress. And once you begin to see that, you know, abstaining from sex is not just abstaining from sex, it's abstaining from shared energy, shared trauma that someone might have. You begin to be more selective with not only who you just talk to, but who you end up wanting to share that energy with down the line, if you do want to have that physical exchange with somebody. So you start to realize that, not everyone is deserving of that energy. Not everyone is ready to receive that. But also, you start to realize that, where you're at is not where you will be. You will always be somewhere different. So enjoy the process, enjoy the moment, enjoy the highs and the lows. Enjoy the moments where you feel like you're about to give in. Enjoy the moments where you feel like you just have an abundance of energy. Um, So embrace those moments. Don't run away from the moments of lust or those thoughts that begin to kick in, or even like your Instagram feed showing, beautiful women. Don't run from it, but embrace it and face it head on and question yourself. Pose that question.
Question yourself.
Yeah.
Question yourself. That's
Question yourself.
key.
Yeah.
Okay, and I have one more question. I don't want this to feel like
Please.
rapid fire, but I'm
No,
like,
no, no, please. I
I
appreciate
have
it.
a question on behalf of the single mothers. I know
Mm,
there are a lot of single mothers who are watching this. There are a lot of single mothers who watch my channel. Much love and shout out to y'all. I wish I could
shout
name
out to
all of
y'all.
you, but what advice would you give a single mother who is raising a little black boy or little black boys, and they are watching this like, yo, I want my son to be like this. I
Mm-hmm,
want my son to be like this.
mm-hmm,
What advice would you give a single mother? What can she do? What can she practice? What can she
mm-hmm.
say in order to guide her son down a righteous path of manhood?
Mm. It's such a beautiful question, and I appreciate you posing the question. So thank you, because that's definitely a needed conversation. Because there are a lot of single mothers out there that maybe don't have the guidance and kind of just have to figure it out for themselves. And by the time the child is 20, they ask themselves, "Did I do a right job or did I not?" So yeah, for single mothers, I would tell you, your child, you know the strengths and the weaknesses, why some circumstance is there. Um, be honest and transparent with your child, um, and teach them emotional intelligence. I think as
Mm,
men, we don't get taught that at all, really. And if we do, it's to shut down. It's not to turn on, process, and execute and see what is the right way to go about certain things and what am I actually feeling. Um, so teach your children emotional intelligence. Surround them with good mentors, with people who want them to succeed. Um, One thing that was instrumental for my upbringing was being part of Boys and Girls Club of America in Los Angeles, California. And that's where I met some great men that were able to mentor me and kind of take me under their wing. So putting your child around good people and good energy that want the best for them and won't harm them, I think is vital. Um, and allowing them to be expressive. I think uh, if your child knows that he wants to do this or he wants to attempt this, don't um, relegate them, don't subdue them. Allow them to experience certain things for themselves and learn the lessons so that they can have that knowledge and wisdom within their bank. It's one thing to look out for your children and to care for them, but it's one thing to deprive them of experiences, and not let them be open and question and ponder. So allow your children to be free and expressive, but also, surround them by good folk.
wow. Thank
Yeah,
you for that. Thank you
of
for that.
course.
Teaching emotional intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
being that model in that safe space
Mm-hmm.
for, your children to express their creativity and their passions,
Uh-huh.
and not subduing them, not suppressing them, not, leading them away or kind of trying to create the path for them as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to guiding them down their own righteous path.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are all great recommendations.
It's almost like, just to add a quick note to that, in terms of parents that guide or steer their children certain ways, it's almost like you are depriving them because you were deprived. So it's almost habitual. It's like you're perpetuating the same cycles, maybe in different ways or in different conversations, but don't kill a child's dream, because we need dreamers. We need those with vision. We need those that are willing to execute. Little boys and little girls that are the new generation, the next leaders. Every vision, every dream is possible. So why not allow them to see a realistic approach to obtain them versus just kill it, you know, the best that you can with the best resources that you can, you know.
Absolutely. And are these all things, because I know this was advice for single mothers,
Hmm.
but are these all practices that you plan on implementing as a father?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Emotional intelligence, I think, is number one for me just because of being a man, and I want that to be for my daughters and for my sons, and to raise them an equilibrium, not just, yeah, son, go sow your oats and go experience life, and daughter, you have to start preparing for marriage and having children at a certain age, otherwise, your life won't be a great life. Um, so painting the narratives and instilling knowledge of self, as you always, proclaim, it's so important. Knowing where you came from, knowing where you came from, so you can know where you're headed. So definitely instilling those variables. Yeah.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you for all of these gems and all
Oh,
of
thank
this
you.
wisdom. It's not every day that, people, men and women, get to experience a brother with so much wisdom and so much knowledge at such a young age, and who's willing to share it. So thank
Thank
you for, just starting your podcast and just opening up and sharing it, for writing your books and all of that, because I'm
you.
going
Of
to ask
course.
one last question because I want you to plug
Please do.
everything that you
Okay.
do so people can support and follow and get more of this good wisdom that you have.
Mm-hmm.
For anyone who wants to learn more about
Mm-hmm.
manhood, spirituality, and just holistic wellness from your perspective,
Mm-hmm.
anyone who wants to learn more, what are your top 5 resources, including yourself and your own stuff? What are your top 5 resources that you say you need to start here? You want to
Uh-huh.
begin your journey? Do this, read this,
Mm-hmm.
watch this. What are your top 5 resources?
Who top five? Top five is always a question I ask other people. So I now understand how
The
people
pressure.
feel. Oh my goodness. It's just so many. But yeah. The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle is one book I would highly recommend for men and women. The Way of the Superior Man by David Delayla, I believe it is. David D.
David
Um,
D.
Celestine Prophecy, The Will to Change by Bell Hooks is out of this world for all men. I highly recommend every man to read that book. Um, and yeah, just tuning into, conversations like this, certain podcasts, Passport to Manhood, Passport from Manhood, which is my platform. So you can check us out there. Yeah, those will be the resources, I would say.
The crazy thing is, every book you named, we were just talking about in the wellness community.
Was
Every
it?
single, I swear to you, I literally was about to pick up my phone, like, look, every book you named, we were just talking about in the wellness community, like,
It is
literally
so
just talking
amazing.
about our book
Yeah.
recommendation. So I do a newsletter in the wellness community. I do a newsletter with resources every month, resources for
Mhm.
holistic wellness, herb recommendations, books, podcasts, different things. And the book for this month was The Power of Now. That was our book recommendation for this month. And that book
That's
alone
amazing.
had Eckhart Tolle as a whole. Watch anything Eckhart Tolle, his interviews,
Hmm.
everything, his podcast. He started a podcast at one point and he has like a bunch of episodes. Read
Hmm.
his books. Eckhart Tolle, if you want to learn about the ego, you want to learn about mindfulness, any of that,
Hmm.
Eckhart Tolle is that guy. The Celestine Prophecy. We literally were just talking about that today in the group
Woo.
chat. Dude, you are on it.
Yeah.
You are on it.
Those are my favorite books. So I tell everybody, just read, even if you don't like that particular book, read their other work. See what else they have that maybe speaks to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for you, for your podcast, A Passport for Manhood,
Hmm.
what inspired you to start that podcast and to really like even just get into this whole conversation on manhood? What inspired you?
What inspired me was Black women, believe it or
Mm.
not. Having conversations with women that are friends, that are family members that are people that I just meet and just have conversations like this, part of organizations. I've heard so much just within the last 2 to 3 years, just about how women feel that they want their men to have some platform or something where men can go to feel like it's a safe space and they're not being judged, and that it's filled with men as well. Um, so just hearing these stories and just communicating with you and, figuring out what's the best way to create something for everyone to share their stories, share their experiences, whether elder or youth or even in the middle. We all have something to contribute. And I think it's important that we have these dialogues and have these discussions, especially as men. So, yeah, I think that, the more that we discuss, the more that we actually find out solutions and actually put to action with these solutions, the more that we're able to start see growth individually and within the community.
Absolutely. I
Mhm.
100% agree with that. And thank you for, following that divine light and really like manifesting that. You know what I'm saying? Because some people get that calling and they ignore it. So thank you
Yes.
for,
Yeah.
heeding the call and really doing it because it's needed. It's
Yeah,
really, really needed. So
it is.
thank you for that.
Of course. Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for having me on your platform and have this wonderful conversation. I think that, I've learned so much just from this conversation alone that it's inspired me to want to continue, you know, the word and continue these conversations so that we're all connected and we all are each other's resources. So thank you so much for allowing me to be on here, and I appreciate you tremendously.
Absolutely. It's definitely my honor. It's my honor. And if everybody who's watching, please tap into the resources that he just shared. And I have to acknowledge Message to the Black Man by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Amen.
I have to acknowledge these are books. Message to a Black Man by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, from Niggas to Gods. I have to acknowledge that book. The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I have to know. Are you about to back it out? You about to come on now? Come on now, Niggas to Gods. You have
You
to
gonna
tap
get
into
that?
that book. And so many more. But thank you for those tools. The Four Agreements, Don Miguel
Oh
Ruiz.
yes. Hmm.
Tap into that resource as well, especially for the brothers. These are resources that are great for men and women, but especially for the
Yes.
brothers, tap into those resources. Especially that Message to a Black Man by Elijah Muhammad. He definitely very, very clarifying in a lot of ways. And my advice would also just be to study men who you feel like have done it right.
Oh yeah.
Understand their stories and read their books, the autobiography of Malcolm X, read the
Hmm.
autobiography of Frederick Douglass, like read their books, listen to their stories where they talk about their highs and their lows, where they
Yeah.
speak about their lessons, their pitfalls, the things that they
Hmm.
fell victim to, their healing journeys. Don't just read about Malcolm X, but also El Haj Malik al-Shabazz,
Hmm.
learn about that transition and his journey to Mecca.
Yep.
Read the letters that he sent back home. Don't just watch the movie and you hear excerpt of the letters. Go find those letters and read those letters so you can understand the revelations that he was coming to from his own
Yes.
pen.
Hmm.
So yeah, I recommend that. And then also Queen Afua has some works out there dedicated. She has Sacred Woman for the Sisters. I got
Oh
that
my
book right
goodness.
here. She
That
has Sacred Woman for
woman.
the Sisters. And then she also has I forget the name. I think it's called Heal Thyself, but it's a book dedicated
Yes,
specifically for Black men. It's called Heal Thyself
I believe so. Yes.
for the brothers. So read Queen Afua and her journey, her guide for Black men to start a healing journey. And
Hmm.
those will be my resources. And join the wellness community, patreon.com/the Queen Poe, the wellness community, where we just support each other and love each other and share resources. And I teach courses on African spirituality, and we do newsletters, and we have a dope group chat where we talk about anything and everything. And we have Zoom meetings and we have conversations like this with way more people.
Exactly. Can I just point out that if you guys are not taking the chance and the opportunity to take these resources and actually tap into the queen and all that she provides, she's providing so many different resources, so many different gems, so many different opportunities for you to learn and grow and evolve as not only just a Black person, but just as a human being in its entirety, whether it's spiritually, mentally, emotionally, or even just physically. So tap into the queen because she knows what she's talking about, and you're gonna be missing out. You're gonna wish that you did.
I appreciate that, King. I appreciate that. And I have a book recommendation I'm going to send you secretly, privately, and I want
Oh,
us
I
to
love it.
build on it. And
Okay.
then next month for the wellness community, it'll be our book in the newsletter. And when we
Okay.
have our Zoom meeting in the wellness community, I would love for you to come into that meeting and co-lead that meeting with me
Oh,
to build upon
thank
that
you.
book. Because I know that you will dissect that thing, really apply it. So wellness community, look forward to something special next month
Thank you.
with
Thank you.
me and this brother with our next book. I'm not going to announce it yet. I'm going to give y'all some time to get through the newsletter for this month. But next month
Yes.
I'll announce the book and then we'll build via Zoom and have a sacred conversation with just the wellness community only. It won't be
I'm
public
looking
on
forward to
YouTube.
that one. Thank you. I
Absolutely.
appreciate
Thank you so much for coming. Thank y'all, everybody, for watching, everyone who's tuned in and taking notes and
it. Thank you all.
commenting and liking and sharing and
Mhm.
subscribing to both of our platforms. We thank you for your support and your love, and much love, family.
Much
Peace.
love, peace, and love to everyone. Shout out to everyone.